Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. And the most important updates are coming from Avdiivka direction. If you remember, during the previous days we were talking that the Russians, as a result of pipeline, let's say landing offensive operation, managed to establish a foothold to the north of Tsarskaya Okhota fortification. According to the Russians, significant number of Ukrainians that located between a residential area, the central part of Avdiivka and the railways were encircled, and during the previous 5 or 6 days the Ukrainian main forces of 110th Brigade were trying to deblocate those forces on the south and to force the Russians to step back. But according to information we have, the Russians managed to repel every single attack of Ukrainian forces. Furthermore, the Ukrainians were using the forces of 110th Brigade in those deblocade operations, and according to information we have, the Ukrainians 110th Brigade during the previous 5 days, as a result of clashes and due to significant losses, lost its combat capabilities. I'll remind you that 110th Brigade is the core and the base of Ukrainian defense in Avdiivka, and the core brigade lost its combat capabilities. Starting of 25th of January, we start receiving a lot of videos how the Ukrainian soldiers of 110th Brigade took a decision to surrender. For example, on this particular scene, we can see Ukrainian soldiers who were, let's say, waving his hands, let's say, trying to send a signal that they're surrendering. Then he started taking off his munition, his gun, and with raised hands, these Ukrainian soldiers started moving in direction of Russian positions. In the end of this video, we can see how they were eating somewhere in Russian kitchen or something like this. So, as I understand, as of 25th of January, the Ukrainian footholds on the south of Avdiivka were completely destroyed, and the Ukrainians were captured and moved to the Russian positions. Of course, some of them managed to, let's say, evacuate and retreat and run away through the forest, but anyway, now the Ukrainians have completely different goal, completely different thing. They will try to create new defense belt along this line, but obviously they didn't have enough of time to create a normal defense belt. And obviously, because of the fact that the Russians managed to dig in deeper in Tsarskaya Okhota in the southern part of Avdiivka, we need to expect more attacks from the Russian side during the next few days, or even maybe today. Because, for example, some Ukrainian sources reported that the Russians have concentrated around 40,000 soldiers in the vicinity of Avdiivka right now, and that the Russians are about to start the final offensive operation all over the entire line of combat contact around Avdiivka, on the south, on the east, on the north, on the southwest, on the west, with the purpose to completely encircle this stronghold. And mainly now this is possible due to the fact that the main brigades of Ukrainian forces in this area were defeated and lost their combat capabilities. When talking about the Ukrainian sources, they confirm some progress of from the Russian side. The pro-Ukrainian mappers, Deep State, shows the Russian progress in the southern part, but they're showing Tsarskaya Okhota fortification area as the area in the gray zone, or at least under Ukraine control. But they confirm the Russian progress along the streets like Sabornaya, Sportivnaya, and Chernyshevskaya. Today we got another message confirmation that as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to establish control the former air defense base, and now the Russians managed to establish control, capture significant dozens of prisoners, and most of the Ukrainian forces from former aviation base retreated towards the fortification by the name of Cheburashka, so to the north, in direction of these railways and direction of this ring road. Now we understand the next Russian steps to attack this area along the entire line of combat contact, and obviously this is going to happen very soon, while the Russians have the initiative and while the Russians have gained momentum. Furthermore, today we got very interesting updates from Krasnogorovka. According to some Russians, the Ukrainians, according to some Ukrainians, the Russians this morning launched a very powerful offensive operation in direction of Krasnogorovka. To tell the truth, I'm not sure whether it's even possible, because Krasnogorovka is a very powerful defense belt with significant number of strongholds and fortifications around the village, around the city. But who knows, maybe the Russians know what they're doing, and today very likely we're going to receive more updates from the Russian side of the progress and process of storming Krasnogorovka as well. When talking about Novomikhailivka, we have just one geolocated video that confirms the Russian progress in the fields between Novomikhailivka and Zverinets fortification. This video was published by the pro-Ukrainian mappers Deep State. On this video, we can see how the Ukrainians were FPV drone bombing the Russian forces somewhere among the fields, but no changes on the ground in the vicinity of the village. Also, some details we got from Bagdanovka area. As you can see, during the previous weeks, we haven't received any updates from the Russian side about any further progress. Now we understand that the speculations that were spreaded by the sources that the Russians managed to establish control over the central part of Bagdanovka were fakes. We got almost every single day more and more geolocated videos of Russian FPV drone strikes just in the central part, which confirms the Ukrainian presence and that Ukrainians still control this territory. So for now, the Russians haven't managed to move further than the northeastern part of Bagdanovka. Now they're storming this area with FPV drones, trying to clear this area, trying to destroy the Ukrainian positions, and maybe in a day or in two or in a week, the Russians will start the ground operation along the streets. The same story we can find in the vicinity of the new cemetery. The Russians continued the bombing of Ukrainian positions along these, let's say, tree lines and fortifications. For example, on this video, we can see FPV drone strike against another Ukrainian position or stronghold in the vicinity of this new cemetery. As you can see, there are still also no progress on the ground. The Russians basically can't bypass these strongholds due to very well fortified positions of Ukrainian army. We got a few geolocations from 215.7 hill. The Russian sources published also the videos of FPV drone strikes against the Ukrainian positions in these trenches, among these trenches and fortifications. And this video confirms that probably the Russians control not the entire 215.7 hill, and that the Russians control just the part that located, let's say, on top of this road. So if we increase the numbers of updates since the beginning of months, we're gonna see that the Russians were attacking the Ukrainians on the south a few times, which confirms probably some Ukrainian presence in this area. So before the next video, we will adjust the map and we will show at least this territory in the gray zone or maybe under Ukraine control. We need to think about this. Very interesting updates are coming from Kupin's direction. The Ukrainian sources start redeploying the brigades of strategical reserves. To be more precise, according to information we have, a new 150th reserved brigade is being transferred to Kupinsk, the formation of which was planned to be completed by the beginning of the spring. So I'll remind you that the Ukrainians currently try to create new brigades of strategical reserves, and there are a few of them. There are brigades like 115th mechanized, 50th, 51st, 152nd, 153rd, 154th. There are 141st, 143rd, and 144th infantry brigades and mechanized brigade that currently the Ukrainians try to create before the spring. But now, because of the problems on the ground and due to heavy losses on Kupin's direction, according to the sources, the Ukrainians started redeployment of brigades of strategical reserves, which also confirms a very poor and very bad situation of Ukrainian army. Now we are moving to Rabotino area, where the Russians, after a very long operational pause, renewed their offensive operation all over the area, all over the line of combat contact. We have the video from the Russian positions on the south of Rabotino, where the Russians were filming the significant number of destroyed Ukrainian armored vehicles around the stronghold. So the clashes here are very heavy, and obviously very soon the Russians will try to make the first attempts to enter Rabotino from the south. Meanwhile, the Russians continued their offensive operation somewhere among the fields between Rabotino and Verbova. On this video, we can see the combat contact between the Russian stormtroopers and one Ukrainian defender somewhere in the fields. As a result of these clashes, the Russians managed to establish control over this stronghold as well. When talking about Krynki, the Russians continue offensive operation, continue clearing operation. To be more precise, they continue capturing the empty buildings under the fire and attack of Ukrainian FPV drones. The Russians tried to move from one building to another, tried to clear the area. As you can see, the Ukrainians from their side tried to bomb the Russians with FPV drones. Some mappers have already updated their maps showing the Russian progress in this area, and according to these geolocation, we have the right to adjust this territory and to color this area as an area under Russian control. So this is the situation on the ground in Russia, and I would like to finish this video not with the situation on the ground in Russia and so on. To tell the truth, very interesting updates, to my opinion, are coming from the United States of America. We will continue following these updates as well. As you know, a lot of states in the United States of America support the Texas state about the situation on the ground, about the situation with the border. So this is something like Republicans' revolution. I'm not saying, I'm not like very familiar with the state situation, but we will stay tuned to this area, because a lot of states, including the Montana state, supported Montana Governor Greg Gifford X. Governor Greg Abbott is doing what POTUS wants, so at least Montana support Texas state. We have South Dakota post in Twitter that they support Greg Abbott as well in the things that he's doing in the southern part of the United States of America. We have also support from Missouri state, and we have support from Florida, we have support from Virginia. So lots of states support Texas, and we see that this is like the way from Republicans, and we see that according to information we have, Joe Biden doesn't want to do anything with the border. Obviously he's just, the main thing is just, as I understand, he just doesn't want to give Republicans some finance and money before the elections, and based on that the Republicans try to make the things they're doing right now. So very interesting situation. We'll follow this, and the most probably important that Texas is going to use its constitutional right to self-defense. So now there is a question about the military personnel, military forces, and the Texas states want to establish control over the National Guard of Texas and many other forces, and for example the Washington tries and Congress try to force Joe Biden to do the same, to establish control over the national forces, National Guard, and many other things in Texas state. So Democrats in Congress are calling on Biden to seize control over the Texas National Guard. And furthermore, we got very strange reports, as I understand, from these from the Shelby part, border secure. The Texas military department continued to hold the line in Shelby Park to deter and prevent an unlawful entry into the state of Texas. So we'll follow the situation, because we see that a lot of people try to speculate, trying to start another civil war in the United States of America. I don't think that this is going to happen, but obviously it's going to be very interesting to follow, because all these things in the United States of America reduce the chances of Ukraine to get some military assistance and help from the Ukrainian state as well, because today we got some update that there are going to be no more money for Ukraine, according to Lloyd Austin. So, and that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your like, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.